In this lesson titled Inserting Subtotals, we're in Workbook Lesson 12, Data Management, and we're in Worksheet tab, Subtotals. When you're working with a sorted list like we see here, it can be very useful to put in subtotals when each category changes. So for instance, we're sorted by the A column first, building, and we see bean, bean, bean until finally it changes to central building. And then the next sort is on department. So within the bean building, we see these departments in alphabetical order. And then inside of each department, we see the people who work there, and we see them in alphabetical order, but this is a reverse alphabetical order. This is what they call Z to A alphabetical order. So we have these three different levels of sort happening here. So the data looks very nice, but we would also like to see subtotals here. So to do that, all we have to do is select somewhere in our data, and we have to make sure that our data is complete. There's no breaks in it. We don't want a blank column or a blank row because that will stop the subtotals. So one quick way to do that is simply to hit Control A on our keyboard, and that selects all contiguous data. So it doesn't select everything, it just selects the data that's connected or contiguous. And then we use another shortcut called Control Period. And every time I hit Control Period, it moves me to another corner of my data. So now I'm in the bottom right on H742, and then I come over here to the bottom of my data on A, and then hitting the period again, I'm back up to A. So I hold the Control key down, and I just keep tapping period, and it just keeps moving me around to the four corners of my data, just because I wanted to kind of check it out and make sure everything's okay first. So let's take a look at this feature called subtotals. We'll need to be in our data tab, and we need to have our data selected, and then just click on subtotal. As soon as we do that, it selects all of our data, so it gives us a visual about the data that we're about to add subtotals to. And then it asks us a few questions. So it's saying, at each change in building, we want to use the sum function on department and summary and employee name. And that's not quite right. We do want to see the change every time the building changes, and the function we want to use is count, right? Because we want to count how many departments there are in each building and how many employees we have inside of each department. If I said sum, the answer would be 0 because it would try to add up numbers, and the buildings, departments, and employee names just don't have any numbers. So we have a few other checkboxes down here, 3 of them. Replace current subtotals, so if we had already done this once, it would replace them. Page break between groups. We don't need these on different pages, but that could be handy if we were printing. And summary below data. So if you check this, all of this summary information, whether you're adding or counting, it'll be at the bottom of each change. Otherwise, by default, it's at the top of each change. So I'm going to say below my data. Let's just click OK and take a look at what happened. A lot of things changed here. You'll see some stuff over to the right, but just kind of ignore that for now. So here's our bean building, and I'm going to scroll down. Bean, bean, bean. We're seeing where it changes. And right here, when we get to the end of the bean building, we told it to count departments, and it did, and then count employee names, and it did. So obviously we have a employee in every department, so these numbers kind of came out the same. But we have a count of 62 departments. So we didn't get unique departments, we just got total of departments. So we might want to take that into account by having a sort where we had a break every time there was a different department. So pretty straightforward here as we come across. And it even picked up one over here that I wasn't counting on, and that was my job rating also got a count. It must have been checked and we didn't notice that. So let's just click anywhere in our data and let's go back to subtotal again. It selected all of our data, and let's just look down here. Sure enough, job rating was checked, and so it showed up there. So we can actually add to this. Now that we've done one, let's do another one. Let's have a break at our department and let's do a count. I want to see how many departments are inside of each of our buildings. So we're just going to do that, and I'm just going to go over here to department, make sure that's checked, and make sure job rating is unchecked. So this is every time department breaks, and all we're doing is counting those departments. You see here it says replace current subtotals. I don't think I'll be interrupting with those, so I think that's okay. Either way, I'm going to say okay. And now we've added another level of complexity to our data. So we still have our bean building coming down, but every time department changes, we get this. So we see we have account management shows up 6 times inside of the bean building because of these employees. And over here, faculty engineering, we have 4 times it shows up here because we have 4 employees, and so forth. So we can add different layers of complexity by sorting on different categories and breaking on different categories. Now let's look over here to the far left to see just exactly what's happening. This is a way of collapsing your data. Because you have come up with subtotals, that means all of these have something in common. These are all bean building. These are all accounting building. And you can actually collapse them to only show the subtotals. And you can do that several ways. One is you can do it here with these little minuses. When you click on them, they collapse and become pluses. And these are categories. So when I click on it, this very small management collapses. ACD is very small, it collapses. Mental health, engineering, IT is a little larger, it collapses. Manufacturing is small. Molding, marketing. So you can see I can just collapse all these, and then all we see are the totals. Well, I can open all those up again and close them all again by using these up here. These are levels 1, 2, 3. And you can see level 3, everything's open. Level 2 collapses all of our subtotals. And level 1 shows only the grand count. So these are also very useful. And Excel will automatically choose these different levels and these groups based on your data. There is one more clever little shortcut I want to show you, and that is if you're presenting the data and you think this is kind of ugly over here, you can kind of hide it while you're presenting your data, and you do that with Control and 8. That hides that over there so you can present, and then Control 8 to show it again when you need these different controls. But no lesson is really complete until you learn how to undo a function. In this case, subtotal. We want to undo it. Just click somewhere in your data and click on subtotal, and you'll see down here it says remove all. If you click on that, it removes all subtotaling and all controls.